It is really indeed the grace of God that saved the United States from chaos at an unprecedented level, in that the attack was not successful. The setup around the campaign ground don't really add up, in that how did the guy make it to the rooftop to be able to execute such a plan? The Democrats need to figure out something else to say in their campaigns, in their rallies now. It's not just about Trump being anti-America, anti-this, anti-that. Oh, the guy's not even fit to live. No, to say the least, it's almost like a high school student who does not have the right words to say in an argument and constantly fills every sentence with cuss words.
Would you say you're pro-Trump then? You're scrolling on Instagram and you see a post that former President Trump has been shot. What came to your mind?
Yeah, that's true. Surprisingly, I was scrolling through Instagram in the evening when I saw the news that President Trump had actually been attacked. And immediately I went on Twitter, and of course, Twitter, for what it is, it was full of different opinions already. I then turned the TV on to watch the analysis afterwards. The first reaction in my mind is that, man, this is sick. It's been a long time that the world has seen an American president attacked at that level. If I remember well, the last time that a successful assassination attempt was made on American soil, an American president, was with John F. Kennedy, and that was in 1963, I believe. And prior to that time will be the assassination attempt on Theodore Roosevelt in the early 1900s. That's about 100 years from now. So I thought, this is not little, and anyone in their right mind would know that this is not little. So I thought this was sick, and how close Trump was to dying. That is, of course, a tremendous miracle, to say the least. The movement of his head a little bit would have implied that the whole world would have been saying, "R.I.P. Donald Trump." But thankfully, and thanks to God, that was not the case. And I imagine the uproar, the chaos that would have ensued afterwards. It would not have been little from the camp of the Republicans and even the nation at large, and even friends of the United States around the world. That would not have been little. So I think, just like many people, many politicians, and some experts have said that this is the benevolent act of God that was shown in the United States, I echo that as well, that it is really indeed the grace of God that saved the United States from chaos at an unprecedented level, in that the attack was not successful. And to think that some other people in the camp of the Democrats have suggested that, oh, the guy should get a better training, I think that's sickening. It's totally moronic, to even say the least, that you would imagine that, oh, he should have aimed better at the United States president or the former president and be successful at the attack. So, the second thing that came to my mind is that things don't really add up. The setup around the campaign ground don't really add up, in that how did the guy make it to the rooftop to be able to execute such a plan? It's well known in records about the presidents who've been assassinated in history. Most of the attacks are actually done over the rooftop. So how did that slip through the Secret Service and the security details around Trump? I think we have a lot to unpack in the days to come. And, I wouldn't talk about the intelligence details. I will leave that for the expert to talk about that. But it really doesn't add up. And I think there is a lot of explanations that the nation will need, and the nations around the world will need to be provided by the Secret Service. Like I said, I also agree with the God factor in this. Trump acknowledged that. I listened to Vivek Ramaswamy also acknowledging the fact that there's a God factor in this. I think that is very true. Last on this point is the reaction that came from Trump right away. The reaction of him raising his hand and saying fight, fight, fight. I think on one hand, some people have described that as, oh, Trump is inciting people to violence. I don't agree with that school of thought at all. In my opinion, the best of our reactions will show when we're under pressure. Trump was not under pressure. It was literally under fire, under literal gunfire. And his response was, in my opinion, courage. It is defiance. It is boldness. It is patriotism. And I say patriotism in the sense that you can't fake the fact that, oh, you have a genuine interest, a genuine desire for your nation, in that he's saying, fight, fight, fight. In fact, when I think about this, it reminds me of someone like Nelson Mandela, which is a very common picture of him that shows up with Nelson Mandela raising his hand also like this. And anyone in history would agree that someone like Nelson Mandela um, demonstrated heroism, especially with all the attacks that he went through and the injustice that he went through, and raising his hand also as a sign of camaraderie, as a sign of courage. That was what we see about Trump. I think that picture, that image of Trump is going to go into history as a sign of heroism, a sign of bravery. And I think really it was at that point that I thought, there are several things we can say about Trump wrongly, but one thing that I think we cannot fake was what Trump could not fake either. He genuinely loves America. And if you look also in history, many of the interviews that Trump has granted since the 80s, he's actually been consistent about, I love this country. And he has said it many times, this is the reason he's running. Of course, we can fault him on many reasons. That will remind me also of the words of Austin Spark in his book on leadership, where he said, every disaster, every fire, every flood elects its own leaders. He said in retrospect that the people will find fault with that leader, but in the moment during that disaster, they are grateful for that leadership. He also went on to say that every disaster, he said, let 5 men be cast adrift in a boat. He said, no plebiscite necessary. The leader would emerge as the person who was the presence of mind. What we saw in Trump there is someone who has the presence of mind, raising his hand in a show, in a demonstration of patriotism and defiance and boldness against the attack that he had just faced. So those are the immediate things that came to my mind when I saw that attack on Trump just 2 days ago.
I know you're enjoying this conversation right now and can't wait to get back into it. But if you're getting some value from this conversation, I think it's a good time to like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me at Revaluate with Fola on social media. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more conversations like this. So let's get back into the conversation.
So, in both the Republican and Democratic camps, there's a call for unity, a call to lower the political temperature across the nation. How do you think this attack will impact Trump in the polls? And is there any opportunity for even President Biden in the midst of this to shine somewhat?
Well, I think some of the things we've seen, let me talk about Trump first, since I'm talking about him here. One of the things we've seen with Trump right after this attack was that this is one of the times that Trump sounds quite, level-headed and presidential in the way he addresses people. He's talking about unity for the nation. I think that's the first thing the nation needs. And I say that because it's not uncommon that you find conspiracy theories will spawn out of occurrences like this. Look at even the case of the assassination of JFK. It's well known that a lot of conspiracies happened right after that. Conspiracies about the fact that, oh, the involvement of the CIA, the involvement of even the vice president, the involvement of the gang, the involvement of GFP, the involvement of several parties that people suspected were actually um, involved in the orchestration of the assassination. So, if care is not taken with the level of conspiracies that will ensue from this, if the the key people, Trump and Biden here, do not actually speak from the perspective of peace and unity, I think the divisive rhetoric would only go to the extent of destroying the fabrics of the nation. So that is correct in the sense that Biden needs to also step up in the way he addresses the nation, and in fact, in the way he carries out his campaigns and the personal attacks that he's had on Trump since I think even before 2020, and it's even worse now. The way they've actually attacked the guy, he's anti-democracy, he's anti-America. It's almost like this guy is not fit to live. That's the way it's described. So for a psychopath who is also interested in carrying out such an execution of the president of the United States, I think that gives such a person a leverage, an opportunity to want to execute such. So there's a very dire need for uniting the nation at this point. And to come back to the question, like, how does this affect Trump in the poll? In fact, how does it affect Biden in the poll? I think, first of all, the Democrats need to figure out something else to say in their campaigns, in their rallies now. It's not just about Trump being anti-America, anti-this, anti-that. Oh, the guy's not even fit to live. No, I think those are, to say the least, it's almost like a high school student who does not have the right words to say in an argument and constantly fills every sentence with cuss words. Is anti-America, is anti this, is anti that. Is a disinformation. Is into misinformation. I think those are divisive rhetoric that should not even be named in their rallies and in their campaigns anymore. And for Trump, does this help his campaign? Does it help him in the polls? It's hard to say. To some extent, I will say yes. It's hard to say because the RNC convention starts today. We will see how that goes. We've already seen that, he's made some significant changes to his speech. He's invited Nikki Haley as a sign of unity at this point. He's yet to pick his vice president. And, the campaign is even yet to officially start. So until all of that happens, we really can't say for sure, oh, he just won in the polls. In fact, many people have said, oh, he just won the election. Well, I think we will find out how that goes. But I think Trump also needs to unite the nation way better than before.
So, why should anyone be concerned about an attempted assassination?
I think everyone should be concerned about any attempt, any attack, whether in your neighborhood, in your house, on your street. I mean, much more an attempted assassination on a former president of the nation. In fact, any nation, not just the United States. Because, take for instance, if you hear that, every brand new car on the street was stolen, you're likely going to put a lock on your steering wheel. If you hear that every house in the neighborhood, 1 out of 10 of every house in the neighborhood is burgled by thieves, you're likely not going to have a sound sleep. If you hear that, everyone that drives on a specific road, 1 out of 100 gets an accident, you will likely be on the edge while driving. And I think the same thing applies here. Why should people be concerned about an assassination attempt? First of all, check out my last monologue where I talked about why there should be global concerns about the United States elections, and even taking Canada for instance, why people should be concerned. People will be on the edge when this kind of thing happens. How do we conduct the next rallies, the next political campaigns? That will be very strict security measures now. And the problem with that also is you look at someone like Trump, who has actually been very vocal about his opinions and his interest in the United States. For others who might share his thought process, the fear of getting assassinated in the future might actually silence them. And when they're silenced, then you rob the nation of balanced perspectives. You rob the nation of opinions and great potential for leadership in the future because people are scared of being assassinated. The last point on this one is, if we go back to the late 1800s, most of the assassination on United States presidents happened in the late 1800s. And, that's like 100 years post-independence. And you find that when the first one happened, I don't remember well the year. I am hand wavy about that history, but it's in the later part of the 1800s that the assassinations happened. When one happens, it looks to me like there might be potential for more to happen because you know, just like a mass shooting, people, those guys want to die heroes. That's part of the reasons that many people get involved in mass shootings. You don't want such to happen. And I think the Secret Service and the security details around Trump should have actually done better to avoid such happening. Um, the other reason is, when you think about it globally, because you might actually think about it as this is just an American problem, why should I care about it? When you think about it globally, if an assassination attempt on a president is even successful, the attempt alone is successful. Talk less of the full execution of killing a former president. How does that embolden camps and terrorist groups like ISIS, for instance? Those camps become really emboldened, seeing that such can happen. And the world is different compared to the late 1800s or even 1963 in the case of JFK. The world is different now. Information is way more accessible than ever before. So I think that's also very important in that it emboldens the enemies of the nations and terrorism groups around the world. So we should be very careful about that.
Would you say you're pro-Trump then?
I get that question a lot. And I must say that I don't like the sound of the questions most times when I get it. Because I think the question is premised on the assumption that the political stance that I take or that anyone should take should be of a binary nature. By that I mean, it's either you support Trump, the Republican Party, the conservatives, or you support Biden, Kamala Harris, and the rest of them, the Democratic Party, and the liberals, or you call the left wing. I don't think there is anything in life that follows that kind of binary approach in its analysis. Actually, from if I compare this, even going from my scientific background, I think many issues in life, many stands in life that people have to take often take a multivariate approach. Let me strip this down a little bit. The assumption that, oh, are you pro Trump is also premised on the fact that are you anti Democrat or are you against Biden? Whatever the case is, I think the question sounds to me like this: are you pro wars that Biden has gotten us into? Are you pro terror? Are you pro ISIS and global terrorism? Are you pro a despicable exit from Afghanistan? Are you pro the level of complexity that is going to follow after now with the fight against terrorism globally? Are you pro assault on children? Are you pro the sabotage on parental control and influence that parents should have on their children? Am I pro the unreasonable climate propaganda and the policies that come out of that camp of the political spectrum in the United States? Am I pro abortion laws that have no limits whatsoever, including late term abortion? Am I pro the denigration of God in the society? Am I pro several other things that I can think about? Am I pro critical race theory that ruins the educational system? Am I pro uh, the focus on the third world country in that the third world countries need to trade off their social values for governmental aid that come out of the West? Am I pro the disastrous exit from Afghanistan? I've talked about that. Am I pro funding Iran and the influence that Iran has in the war going on in the Middle East right now? I think if you strip that question down into all the details, that's the way it sounds to me. I can't just say, oh, I belong to this political spectrum or to this political camp. No, I look at all the fine details around the edges. So am I pro Biden? Definitely, with all the things I have listed here, in my right mind, I will not sit on that camp. And so now the question is, what about the Trump side? I think the question to me, even in the immediate looking at the event that just unfolded 2 days ago, it sounds like, am I pro courage? Am I pro patriotism? Am I pro boldness? Am I pro a president who will fight? Am I pro the guy who acknowledges God? Am I pro also, conservative values? I think the answer to it is not straightforward as it sounds. But the fact is, if you place all the value systems side by side, if you want to look at it in a binary approach, I think you have to strip down all the value systems, compare them, and make a conclusive decision for yourself. And I think when I think about this also, the stakes are higher than just making a binary decision like people often assume it is. And I think the same problem is what we're dealing with in Canada as well, where people assume, oh, are you liberal or are you conservative? The answer to most things in life is not binary. The answer to even how you run a home is not binary. You have to think about the fine details of the complexity of those issues before you come into a conclusion. And I think this is where I challenge people. The stance you've taken about many things, did you actually consider all the details? Did you consider the repercussions? Did you even consider what thought processes led you to make that conclusion about that opinion, that perspective, that thought that you've engaged in your mind, the principle by which you're living every day that is causing you to make sacrifices, that is causing you to make the decisions you're making by the day? And I think most times, many people have actually not paused to give those thought processes, a very good attention to all the details. So, am I pro-Trump? I think I will leave that question just like that. But the fact is, I am pro-common sense. I am pro every idea, every possibility that does not give government an overreach in my life and the life of the nation and the life of the people in the nation. I am pro less government control on the lives of people. I am pro global peace. I am pro abundance and prosperity in the world. I am pro the fact that poverty needs to reduce globally. And whoever represents that, it's on that camp that I often stand.
There you have it. A reflection on the attempted assassination of former President Trump, a call for unity amongst both political sides, and the value system that should govern your life, the way you think, the way you make decisions. Thank you for listening.
Well, if you made it far in this conversation, there are very high chances that you got some value from this. I want to plead with you to subscribe to the channel, and that way you show some support for the channel so that I'm able to keep doing this, bringing insightful thoughts and conversations to you constantly. And the support will go a long way to actually keep me encouraged in doing this. So please click on the subscribe button now. That will be very important to me, and I will keep my side of the story in constantly improving the quality of the conversations that come out of this channel. Well, thank you. See you next time.